Alright, thanks for sticking around, you guys. In last video, we translated our Figma design into Webflow, got that first cartoon landing page all set up, and now I'm just going to go through some simple animations, hover effects, and things to kind of bring it to life, add the extra oomph. So let's just jump back right in. So looking at our page here, first thing we can do, buttons, we need to make sure the user knows that it's a button and it's clickable, right? So let's click on this button. Let's go to, right at the bottom here, we have transitions. And when you affect the base state of a button, so by that I mean over here you can change the styling for the button in different states, right? Hover is what we're going to focus on, but when you're in the base version of it, if you add a transition, this will affect the base state to whatever other state of the button will look like, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just do all properties. That's usually a safe way to go. So any transition I add to it will ease in and it will have a duration of 200 milliseconds. And then I want to hover. I'm going to have a pointer. So anytime somebody points over it, it'll be a cursor, which is a good way to indicate that you're hovering over a button. So those are just the base properties to affect. So now when I go into actual hover, these things will happen. And I'm not going to do too much. Really, all I want to do, maybe add a little box shadow here. We can affect the distance of this. I don't want to change too much. Blur looks okay. Size. No, I liked it where it was. It's subtle. It's nice. And the background color, we're just going to change that. We're going to leave the color the same, but if we change this alpha value over here, that's just going to change the opacity. So right now it's at 100. I'm just going to change it to 80. So that way, when somebody hovers over it, if I go back to the no state, and the no state, and then we get our little box shadow, and we get our little color change. And in the preview mode, we'll get the pointer too. So we affected the button in the base state, which told it how to transition into a new state and what to do on hover. And that gave us a pointer, and it gave us the shadow and the color. Beautiful. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're just going to affect some animations using Webflow animations. We're going to click on our Titanic ship. We're going to click this little element trigger at the top, this lightning bolt. We're going to add a page trigger for this. And we're going to do upon page load. We're going to add a new animation here. And let's just new timed animation. Let's name it cartoon elements in. So this will just be an animation bringing all of the elements of our home screen on when the page loads. So create this, and with our Titanic boat selected, we can add a new action to this. We're really just going to affect moving and opacity a little bit. So you always need to set two states, the initial state and where it will end up when it is done with the animation. So we're going to click this little toggle, set as initial state, and its initial state will just be, let's see, it'll be off to the left, let's say, 500 pixels, and let's just make that 0. And then let's say after 1.5 seconds, it will return to the 0 spot. So at the start of the page load, it's going to be off to the left, and then after a second and a half, it'll appear back to the middle where we styled it. That's just to kind of give it some flow when the user loads the page. That looks a little slow, so maybe let's do 1.2, and we can preview that again. All right, we can adjust that later if we need to. Another thing we can do is just add opacity as well. So then it kind of gives it this appearance of kind of fading into the view. So I'm going to do opacity, initial state, let's set that as 0 as well. And then when we go down to this 1.2 mark, and it's going back to 0, the opacity, we have to add another opacity. We can connect that to that. And we'll bring the opacity back to 100. So that way, now as it moves, it fades into view like that. And remember, this is all our page load animation. So when the page is loading, all these things that we're creating right now are going to happen. So we did the Titanic, and we can do similar things just for the other ones. So I have this called image. Let's change this to iceberg while I'm here. And I'm going to go here, and on our page load cartoon elements in trigger, I'm going to make sure I'm highlighted on iceberg. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set the opacity as initial state to 0. And then I can just go to this chunk of 1.2 second mark. I'm going to add another opacity for the iceberg of 100, so that way it'll be fully viewable at that time. Great, and then I'm going to click the iceberg, make sure I'm back in the initial state group. I'm going to have move. I'm going to move it down 500, so it's out of view. Did I just move it up? Where did it go? I think it's negative 500 for a y-axis. No, I was right, 500. There we go. And then once it gets here, we want to move that back down to 0. All right. Great, except it's super fast. So we just want to change the duration of that. We can actually do the same thing for all these. If we hold down Shift, it'll affect the duration of all of them. Let's make that 1.2 like we had. Great, so now they slowly fade into the position that we put them. Just add a little smoothing in the beginning when the page loads. And let's just finish up with the button here. We can do the same exact thing. Let's do opacity as initial state, 0. And then when it's here, we'll make the opacity 100%. We can make the button move. Oops, that's going to be part of this group here. This button is moving from the top. And then the button will go move back to 0. And let's just really just highlight everything. And let's make sure that the duration is 1.2 for all the elements that are happening. We can also change the ease in option right here, and that'll just make sure everything smooths in and eases in. So when you click preview, see how it kind of doesn't abruptly stop, it kind of eases into the stopped location there. It looks a little dramatic, so I think I'm going to change, let me see, watch it one more time. I think the distance is too far. I'm going to change these around. So let's see, Titanic, let's make this negative 300. And then same for all of these, 300. There we go. Now it's not traveling as far a distance, so it's not flying in. Now it's a little more smooth and subtle. Cool. I'm just going to save this. So now we have this whole animation called Cartoon Elements In, and all the things that we just styled live inside that. So when we have all of our elements in place, we've got our animation set up. Now we can preview, see everything works smoothly. We can publish our site. This will publish it to the Webflow, just .io domain, so nothing crazy. We can just make sure that's checked. Publish to selected domains. And then when we click this little up arrow, here we go. Our site is live. We can see it in action. All of our elements fade in nicely. Nice and smooth. Got a nice hover effect here. Alright guys, I think I'm going to split up this video into two. So in the next video, we are going to tackle a little button click animation, and I'm going to show you how we did a little sunset fade and trigger into a new background color as well. So stick around if you want to keep going and learn some more interactions on Webflow.